Hi, kindergartners. We're going to read a math book today. And this read aloud is a little bit different because I want you to hit the pause button and stop the video to do some of the counting. I'll show you what I mean. This is called How Many Snails? A Counting Book, written by Paul Gigante Jr. and illustrated by Donald Cruz. Did you know this author, Paul Gigante, lives right here in Albany? He does. Look at the end pages. So many question marks. How many snails? A counting book. Are you ready to count? Me too. I went walking and I wondered how many clouds there were. How many clouds were big and fluffy? Let's count. Those clouds are big and fluffy. These clouds are fluffy, but they're not so big. And that cloud's not even fluffy, so just big and fluffy. 1, 2, 3. You have to listen to what you're supposed to count. You're not counting them all. How many clouds were big and fluffy and gray? Let's find out. That's big and fluffy and gray. That's gray and fluffy, but it's not big, so we can't count that one. That one's gray and big and fluffy. That one's gray, but it's not big and it's not fluffy. So I think our answer is only 1. 2 clouds are big and gray and fluffy. Ooh, are you getting the hang of it? All right. I went walking to the meadow and I wondered how many flowers there were. How many flowers are yellow? Here's where you can pause the video and count all the flowers that have yellow. After you've counted, I'm going to ask another question. So you can pause again after I read this question. How many flowers were yellow with black centers? Go ahead and count them. And then you can push play again and hear the rest. I went walking to the lake and I wondered how many fish there were. How many fish were red? Pause. How many fish were red and had their mouths open? All right, so now you're looking for red and their mouths open. That one doesn't have its mouth open. Neither does that one. Oh, but that one does. All right, so you're just counting the ones that are red with their mouths open. You're going to push pause and count, and then you can push play again to hear the rest. I went walking to the garden and I wondered how many snails there were. How many snails had striped shells? Go ahead and pause and figure that out. And then push play. How many snails had striped shells and had their heads stuck out? Like that one, you can see its head and it has a striped shell, but this one has a striped shell, but you can't see the snail's head. I'll read it again. You push pause, count, and then you can push play again. How many snails had striped shells and stuck their heads out? Pause and count. I went walking to the beach and I wondered how many starfish there were. How many starfish had 5 arms? Pause and count, and then push play. How many starfish had 5 arms and were on rocks? I'm going to skip this page because we're going to do it in Seesaw. You're going to like it. I went walking to the library and I wondered how many books there were. How many books were tiny? How many books had numbers on them? Don't forget to pause and count. I went walking to the library and I wondered, how many cupcakes were there? Oh my gosh, you're going to have to pause and count and then push play. How many cupcakes had white icing? Pause again. Count and push play. This one has another question. How many cupcakes had white icing and candy sprinkles? This page is making me hungry. Pause and count and push play. I went walking to the toy store and I wondered how many trucks there were. Pause and count and push play. How many trucks were fire trucks? I think the fire trucks are the red ones with the ladders. Count and push play when you're done. How many trucks were fire trucks and had ladders on them? All right. Get ready to listen and then push pause and count. I went walking at night and wondered how many stars were there. Here's another question. How many stars were bright? Pause, count, and play. How many stars were shooting stars? Pause and count, then play. I went walking to my bedroom, but I didn't wonder how many goodnight kisses I would get, because I knew. How many goodnight kisses do you get? How many do you like? Maybe that's the same answer. Maybe it's not. So many questions to ask. Good job, mathematicians.